Hi everyone, I'm Liam, so welcome back to my channel. So today's I am going to start out videos talk about sports. So this video come from WhatsApp English, and the owners of this channel is Carter. His speak English very slow and clear. Okay, let's get started.
So now let's talk about sports. When I was young, I used to play sports. I was never that good. I had an older brother who also played sports, and he was better than me at every sport we played. But I did play a little bit of hockey and a little bit of soccer as well. And here is a picture of the highlight of my hockey career. This was when I won a trophy for being the MVP at the All-Star Games for my league. Now, some of you might remember my video about what does VIP mean, very important person. But this one is the MVP. So do you know what MVP means? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. So MVP means most valuable player. And this is an acronym or a term that we use usually for sports. The MVP. We don't say VIP. We say MVP. So that was probably the peak of my sports career. And then after that, it kind of just I got lazy and I stopped playing sports. Sometimes I still do Muay Thai and boxing because I really like the combat sports. But I don't compete and I don't play in a team for any sport right now. So that was a little bit about my sports history. You probably noticed that I used the word soccer instead of football. Now, in countries like Canada, the USA, even Australia and New Zealand, I believe people use the word soccer instead of football. And in this podcast, I will use the word soccer because that is what Canadians and Americans say. And I am Canadian, by the way, if you didn't know. Now, the interesting thing is that the word soccer actually originated in England. And you might be thinking, well, in England, they say football. I thought Americans created this word soccer to just be different. But no, soccer started in England because it used to be called association football. In England, they had many different types of football. A lot of the sports where you had a ball and you used your feet were called football. So even sports like rugby were a type of football. So to separate what's now known as soccer from the other footballs, they called it association football. That was the name of soccer, and then they shortened association football to a soc football. ASSOC football. A soc football sounded weird, so they just changed a soc football to soccer. So,
sorry, I need to take a waters, drink waters because. Okay, let's continue.
So now they had
both
soccer and football. And in the late 19th century and 20th century, soccer or football made its way to the USA. And at that time, the USA already had American football, the one where they have the ball and they throw it and they tackle each other. So America, to avoid confusion, they just used that word soccer and it stuck. But most other countries still use the word football. I know that story was a little bit confusing, but in a nutshell, there were many different types of football in England. What is now known as soccer was called association football because that was the type of football it was. And then they shortened it to a sock football, which then turned into soccer. And when the sport came to the USA, they just used that word soccer to avoid confusion with American football. Okay, so there is the little history lesson. I hope it wasn't too confusing. So now let's play a little game. Let's see if you know the 5 most common sports in Vietnam. I did some research on this and tried to figure out the most common sport, and this is what I found. So what do you think the most common sport in Vietnam is? This one is pretty easy. If you guess soccer, then you are correct. Now, since soccer is so popular in Vietnam, let's talk about it. Firstly, soccer is played on a field. This field could have real grass or fake grass. And that fake grass is called turf. And the professional soccer teams play at a stadium, but they still play on a field. So the field is in the stadium. Each team has 11 players, and they each have their own positions, including goalkeepers, midfielders, defenders, and forwards. And of course, each team has a coach. Now, in professional games, there are usually 4 referees, and the referees are there to make sure the players don't break the rules. And if they do, they decide how to penalize them. So soccer is the most common sport in the world, probably because you don't need much to play it. You just need a ball and an area to play it. You don't even need a net. You can just put 2 things there, and that is your net. I remember being young, and we would make a net just with
I remember being young, we would make a nest just like
random things, like a can and then a plastic bag, and that is your net, right? And so for soccer and a lot of other team sports, we call the competition between 2 teams a match. So it's like a soccer match. But for some other sports, we can also call it a game. For example, for American football, hockey, basketball, and baseball, you will often hear Americans and Canadians call it a game. For example, we'll say, did you watch the hockey games last night? Or did you watch the basketball game? But for other sports like boxing, tennis, rugby, and boxing, tennis, rugby, and for sports played in Europe, they will usually say match. For example, did you watch the football match? Or the rugby match yesterday was crazy. So for these matches, they can usually end in 3 ways. Either one side will win, will lose, or
it will be
a draw.
A draw.
So for example, if Vietnam plays a football match and they win, you could say Vietnam won the football match. But if you want to say that Vietnam defeated another team, we often use the word beat. So to beat and to defeat mean the same things, but to beat is more natural and is more common. So for example, you could say Spain beat England in the Euro 2024 championship. Or if you want to say it the other way around, we use the verb lost to. For example, England lost to Spain in the Euro 2024 championship. Okay, so that was a lot about soccer. We spent a lot of time talking about soccer just because it is so popular. So now let's move to the number 2 most common sport in Vietnam. Do you know what it is? I'll give you 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
2,
1.
The second most common sport in Vietnam is badminton. Badminton is really popular because again, you don't need much to play it. You need a racket, a shuttlecock, and if you want, you can use a net. And when you go around Vietnam, you see people playing badminton in so many places, like in parks or on the street. For example, all they need to do is to attach a net to 2 trees, and then that's a spot where you can play badminton. So personally, I love badminton. I think it's a really fun game. It's not too difficult. Okay, so now let's move to the third most popular sport in Vietnam, which is table tennis. Alright, so table tennis can also be called ping pong, and it's popular all around Vietnam. Vietnam is also pretty good at it. There are a lot of Vietnamese players in international tournaments. So they are able to compete on the international stage. For table tennis, you simply need a table with a net and 2 paddles. Some people call them rackets, but I think it makes more sense to call it a paddle. And also, of course, you need a ping pong ball or a table tennis ball. Alright, so let's move to number 4. The fourth most popular sport in Vietnam is volleyball. So there are 2 main types of volleyballs. There is indoor volleyball and there is beach volleyball that you can play outside. Because on the beach you can dive, you can fall, and you're not going to get hurt unlike falling on concrete. And so actually Vietnam is very good at volleyball too. The men and the women's team regularly compete in the international tournaments. And I saw in a news article not too long ago that the women's team came third in a pretty big championship. I can't remember the name of the championship, but they came third, I think right behind Czech Republic, who came first, and Puerto Rico. I think Puerto Rico who came second. But the point is that Vietnam is also very good at volleyball. And so number 5, the 5th most popular sport is basketball. So basketball is a sport that's growing pretty fast in Vietnam, especially among the young population. I'm sure many of you, when you see the basketball courts, the public basketball courts in some areas like the Vinhomes apartments,
premise,
you'll see
you see
the vast majority of the players are young kids. And so basketball has become very popular amongst the young crowd. And in Vietnam, there is a basketball association called the VBA, the Vietnam Basketball Association. This is a league that has 6 teams, including the Hanoi Buffaloes, the Saigon Heat, the Nha Trang Dolphins, and 3 other teams. And for basketball, again, you don't need too much. You need a flat and hard surface, not grass, but concrete, a basketball net, and a basketball. There are a few other sports that are worth mentioning. Oops, that was my phone. Like billiards. So billiards is a broad term for sports played with the cue. Normally, a lot of native speakers will call it pool. So if it's the game with the table with the holes, then we call it pool. But there's also the game with no holes that they play in Vietnam, and that is called Carrom. It's quite popular. I've never played it. It looks pretty hard.
But yes.
All right, guys. So now let's do this.
So yeah, I just started a video talk about sport. Let summarize what we just started. He talked about Carlos. He talked about his experience in sport. He plays hockey and soccer when he was young. And then he talked about top 5 sport popular in Vietnam. So the first one is soccer, of course. I'm playing soccer. I play soccer every Thursday every week. And then he talked about and the second popular sport is table tennis. The third is badminton. The badminton is stand in the number 2 and the third is table tennis. The fourth is basketball. 5 is volleyball. Yeah. So thank you for listening. That's all for today. So I will see you in the next video. Yeah, and thank you.